Good afternoon, members of the board. I would like to thank you all for the opportunity to speak in front of you on what has been a very long day, and I know that the meeting has been running a little long, so I'm going to try to limit my presentation to around 10 minutes or so. So I'm going to set a clock for myself. I'm going to talk to you today about something that is near and dear to my heart and a project that I'm excited about personally to address a social issue and a social problem that is prevalent here in Lexington, Kentucky. And the name of our project is going to be Securing Shelter. What that means, what that's going to consist of, we'll get into that. So just for starters, the macro client that we will be addressing will be former foster youth. The problem we will be addressing will be homelessness, and the arena where we will be addressing this problem will be Lexington, Kentucky. Eventually, we have grand designs for this to be a project that expands beyond Lexington, possibly statewide. However, at this time, the pilot study will be done in Lexington. So just to review, the client population will be residents of Lexington, Kentucky who have aged out of state's care at 18 and are currently homeless. The definition will encompass clients currently living in a shelter, those with no semi-permanent address, and those that could self-identify as couch surfing with friends or relatives. So how we will engage with this population is going to be very critical to the success of this project. Because of the notorious, transient nature of the population by definition, engagements will have to occur primarily out in the community, in homeless shelters, agency offices, wherever the client can be located and interacted with. We plan on offering a nominal gift card as a recruitment incentive to encourage participation, at least initially, till we get off the ground and get some traction behind what we're doing. We'll also have a social media campaign and a distribution of flyers at targeted areas. The questionnaire that we will be engaging with the population will consist of open and closed questions, but we will emphasize a strength-based focus to engage this population. Once we initially successfully initiate contact, we will gather basic demographic information and assess them for what formal and informal supports and sources they are currently utilizing. As we all know, engagements with this population, we have to remain extremely respectful. We have to interact with them in a non-overly authoritarian or paternalistic nature. We must remain empathetic and very respectful. An alliance with our clients is the main goal here, knowing that this project cannot succeed unless we engage with them in a very successful manner and form an ally with this population. So as far as the statistics are concerned, as we all know, by age 26, around 40% of former foster youth have reported at least one bout of homelessness. And these statistics are seen across the board and has been confirmed through the National Youth in Transition database. The back door of the foster care system is the front door to the homelessness system. Just as responsibility ceases for one system, it begins for the other. Some observers have described the foster care system as a pipeline to homelessness. Some look into the history and scope of the problem. The scope of this problem is really systemic and institutional in nature. There is a belief that just the child welfare system as a whole may inhibit youth in the development of self-efficacy, motivation, and the belief that it can affect future outcomes and events. The foster care system may also compound turmoil inherent in the transition to adulthood, particularly in regard to securing adequate housing. Some relevant social policies that have came up over the last couple of years to address this issue include the Runaway and Homelessness Act of 2008, which provided transitional living programs to youth that were homeless, and the Fostering Connections to Success and Increasing Adoptions Act of 2008, which provided federal funding for states to extend their extended commitment program to youth as they turn 18 so they can remain in state's custody to 21. And as we all know, here in Kentucky, voluntarily extending one's commitment at 18 is a privilege that most extended commitment youth can gain access to, and they can remain in state's custody until 21 to access those services for education, for to secure housing, for job training and vocational skills, that sort of thing. So we all know that there's lots of current efforts to address this problem nationwide, statewide, and locally. There has been great support for transitional living programs on a national level. Transitional living programs really reduce homelessness by providing, independent living skills to youth prior to turning 18. However, the research that I've looked into shows that further research is needed into assessing what barriers are out there preventing youth after turning 18 from accessing these services. And so that's the crux of the problem that we're looking at here. The services are out there, but the youth are not accessing them. Other things that can address this issue include extending commitment at 18, which is always a great option, and then providing housing vouchers for youth after they leave care. And as we all know here locally, Community Action Council does this through their Project Life program. But like I said, we've identified some severe gaps in service for this target population. For starters, there doesn't exist any transitional living programs here in Fayette County that foster youth can access. There's only one transitional living program at the state for children under 18, and that is in Louisville. We also know that youth after they leave state's care have minimal involvement and minimal engagement with social welfare programs and social services. There's also barriers to accessing these resources, and this is a notorious hard to reach client due to just the inherent instability in being homeless, in being transient, in not having a working phone, those sort of things. All of those lead to gaps in service. So people of influence and allies that will be instrumental into this project being a success, and I see some smiles among you because a lot of you in this room right now are members of one, if not several of these programs. First and foremost will be Fayette County DCBS. Then we'll follow the Community Action Council because they already have an established Project Life that provides tuition or housing vouchers to homeless youth, Fostering Goodwill and Fostering Success. Those are institutions that are made up of former foster youth, which will be instrumental. And Arbor Youth Services, Voices of the Commonwealth. Oh, I apologize, I have Arbor Youth Services on there twice. They're that important. And primarily the former foster youth themselves. Like I spoke previously, this project will not be a success unless we gain the support and trust of the former foster youth, and we're able to form a relationship with them and enable them to advocate for themselves and access the resources that are out there and available. So the summary of need, really the prevalence of the homelessness among former foster youth, it's a pervasive and systemic social problem. I don't think anyone in this room will disagree with me on that one. This is furtherly compounded by the fact that former foster youth experiencing this hardship are disproportionately from lower income communities and were initially removed due to physical abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse, that sort of thing. So we're dealing with a population that inherently has experienced a lot of trauma as children, and then as they turn 18 and age out of care, they continue to experience trauma through victimization, through social injustices, and through the very act of being homelessness itself. So Project Securing Shelter will attempt to alleviate this need by providing education, information, and advocacy for former foster youth, with the goal of significantly reducing the number of homeless former foster youth in Lexington, Kentucky by connecting them with what existing resources are currently out there. We don't need to reinvent the wheel, people. We know that we're doing a good job, or at least we're trying to do a good job to engage this population. However, there's something that's not working. There is a gap in service somewhere, and we need to identify what that is so we can connect these youth with the services that are in place to help mitigate this social problem. For those of you that are more logic-minded, I've included this logic model here, talking about, the investments, what we're going to input into this goal, staff, volunteers, clients, that sort of thing, the activities that we will have to do, the participants in this program, and some short-term, medium-term, and long-term goals. And just for brevity's sake, the main thing that we're going to focus on short-term is identifying the existing barriers to service. The medium-term goals will be mitigating these existing barriers to service, and the long-term goals will be eliminating these existing barriers to service. So, in conclusion, oops, I apologize there. Yes. In conclusion, Fayette County, compared to some of the other areas in our region, is chock full of resources to assist homeless youth who have aged out of care. However, due to lack of information, misinformation, and accessibility issues, We continue to have an ongoing homelessness problem with former foster youth. So clearly there exists a systemic disconnect resulting in large portions of the population being either unable or unwilling to access the services that are out there. The initial phase of Project Secure and Shelter will engage the client population through a targeted campaign of information and case management. The goal will be to reduce homelessness by identifying the barriers to service and facilitating enrollment in these programs. By forming a coalition with the previously existing services, Securing Shelter will place itself in a position to advocate for macro level change on a statewide level. Do we have any questions? I guess I must have thoroughly impressed you all to speechlessness, and I see that my time has run out. So I just want to thank you once again for the opportunity to talk to you, and I will be handing out some t-shirts with our logo on them and some business cards with my contact information if anyone out there wants to reach out to me. Again, thank you for your time.